Okay, you're on the air.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Legislative and Ordinance meeting of May 19th at 5:30 p.m. The first item on the agenda is calling it to order. Second is attendance. Councilor Burns.
Here.
Councilor Adams.
Here.
And myself, Councilor Oniski, is here. The next item is item 3, public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak at this point? If so, please state your name and address.
Should I speak now, or do you want me to wait until you come up with my Yellowstone House Farm?
If you could wait until then, Connie, that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this point? Okay, seeing none. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, approval of the minutes of May 5th, 2021.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 5th, 2021 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call. Adams.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
And Oniski is a yes. Next item is item 5, which is appropriation of $76,128.24 from Community Preservation Undesignated Balance Account number 2410-34 quad 0 to the CPA City Park and Cemetery Monuments Historic Account 24101-770-580-200-5209 and appropriation of $12,871.76 from the Community Preservation Undesignated FYI 21 account 24101-770-58 quad 0 to the CPA City Park and Cemetery Monuments Historic account 24101-770-580-200-5209. So I hope that's clear. We'll separate these on the city council agenda just to make it a little more clear. So this has gone through the CPA, and Jay Vinsky is here to discuss, as well as Gene Thoreau. Jay, can you start off with it, please?
Sure. I'll leave the specifics to Gene, but generally, he came before the CPA with a list of various monuments and cemeteries and parks in need of restoration. And some are on city property, some are at Pine Hill Cemetery, which is item 6 on your agenda. So this was, the current item was separated out all those public properties, city parks, cemetery, where the money would be spent. So that's kind of the reason it's split into 2 different items. But the CPC did consulted with the Historic Commission, who represented that the specific items, monuments, were of significance to the city, thereby qualifying them for CPA funding, and the CPC voted to allocate funding as read.
Okay, thank you. Gene, can you give a brief overview of these? I'd appreciate it.
Sure. One big piece is the Civil War soldier at Park Square, which is really corroded, and the 4 plates on it are, you can't even read a single digit on it. And the bronze sculpture is really heavily corroded, and that's probably the most expensive of the monuments that are on the list. And it's roughly $30,500 just to fix that one monument. The General Shepherd, the sculpture is bronze and is heavily corroded, and that one came out to $16,000 and change, if I recall. Appermont Park, the 104th Infantry bronze plaques, two different types of bronze that were on the monument, so two different colors. It needs to be, the treatment would be for laser treatment and then a patina and then it to be waxed and then the dedication plaque or the gift plaque that's along the road. Parker Memorial Park, the bronze plaque, the gift plaque from Judge, from name is for mother, Elizabeth Parker. That's really heavily soiled and corroded, and the boulder is about 4 inches in the ground, which needs to be raised. And then on the far right, the Lieutenant William Hassett Kane, the only commissioned officer from the city of Westfield, killed in action in World War I. And it's kind of a sad story because he was godfather to John and Eugene Kane, to Eugene Kane, first cousins to John and Eugene Kane, both of whom were killed in action in World War II in Normandy in one in June of 1944 and a later one in August 1944. Up at Pine Hill, the Grand Army of the Republic Lion Civil War soldier, which is zinc. The seams are all starting to come apart, and that was a gift from Edwin Ralph Lay, who was a Civil War soldier, a longtime post commander, the chaplain of that post for 40 years. And the Grand Army of the Republic, they own 14 lots there. The granite was donated by the Grand Army of the Relief Corps, in other words, the women, and Edwin Ralph Lay had the sculpture done in his likeness. Some people might say that's kind of vain of him, but on the same token, he lost 2 brothers in the war, James and Henry Lay of Westfield. His brother William Lay is in the backside of Pine Hill along King Street Extension. Edwin Ralph Lay he owned 2 whip factories, one up on Derby Line and then the Edwin Ralph Lay whip factory. His grandfather was a Methodist, and he was big into the Feedon Hills Methodist Church. The church burned down in 1898, and Edwin Ralph Lay donated $15,000 out of his own money to rebuild the church and furnish it. Just to give you an idea of the character and the gentleman that Edwin Ralph Lay was. There's a significant amount. If you go into Pine Hill Cemetery, so many of the notable citizens in the early days of Westfield are there, and so many of these sandstone obelisk monuments are delaminating, huge cracks in them. You have a couple like that in the old burying ground. There's so many monuments that are sugaring in the old burying ground. I spent a couple hours in there this afternoon taking a good look at it. And there's so many others that, well, they need that treatment of the consolidator. And give you an idea how expensive this stuff is. A 5-gallon pail of the consolidator cost for $900. You have to do 6 treatments, and you have to do it outside of 3 days of rain, and you have to do it in the same day. And probably a 5-gallon pail would be enough to do 2 obelisk monuments.
Well, thank you, Gene. I appreciate the work you and I know the Historical Commission does a lot of work in cleaning these grave sites, and I know I appreciate it, and a lot of other people do also. I do have a few detailed, I guess, questions on this item, the first item here that we're talking about. Where is this for, this money? We've got 2 items, and I just want to be sure that we're separating them correctly. So maybe Jay, do you have that, or do you know, Gene?
Well, I submitted.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Jay, do you want me to speak or you?
I'll take a stab at it. So Gene kind of put together, and I think you have a copy, the comprehensive package, which just like he just went through, listed all these various monuments, whether they're on private property, in this case Pine Hill Cemetery, or on public property, which was the majority. So we split that into two separate projects because one would be go through the city procurement process and bidding and all the proper procedures for city properties. The other item for Pine Hill is would be a private funding. So that's why they're split into number 5 and number 6. Now within each of those, there are two separate appropriations just because the way the accounting worked for CPA. That is, we didn't have enough money in the current fiscal year appropriation. So we had to tap into the balance. So that's the auditor advised that we spend down the fiscal year money first, and then that went to zero, and then the balance was taken from the undesignated. So it's effectively one appropriation from two sources.
And what cemetery, is that at a cemetery, this first one? Or
I
is this
believe
the monuments?
various places. I believe some is at Old Burying Ground,
Old
Which is-
burying ground,
which is city property.
right, Mondale with city ground, Middle Farms and Owen District, city owned.
Okay. I got Old Burying Ground, Mundale, Owen District. What was the one I missed?
Middle Farms.
Middle Farms.
And when I said Mondale, there's actually two Mondale cemeteries. There's an old and a new.
And there are also the parks that Gene mentioned. So Parker,
Parker Park, and what was the other one?
Shepherd
Appermont.
Park. Yes,
Okay. Shepherd, General Shepherd,
yes.
and what was the other one?
The Civil War soldier there at Park Square.
and Appermont, I think you mentioned.
Okay, so the funding is for these locations only, correct? Which are all city owned.
Yeah, item 5 is all city-owned property.
Okay. And this is for work that needs to be contracted out, or is some of it, you said we got to buy the $900 buckets?
Some of it's going to be contracted out. All the monument work and the bronze plaques stuff will all be contracted out. And a lot of the obelisk monuments, all of that will be contracted out because you need specific equipment and because they're very tall and it's far beyond the capability of volunteers. However, we're going to try to do a lot of volunteer work to raise, reset, mortar, straighten out the bases, get them level and plumb, and make stacking mortar and all that kind of stuff, which I've been training people how to do that. And Cindy Gaylord and her husband and our teams between her set of volunteers and other volunteers, we're going to work closely and do as much as we possibly can.
And funding-wise, again, everything will need to go through the proper procurement for city money on city properties.
So this is an estimate then at this point? Or do we have?
Yes.
to
Yeah.
get it out?
Right.
Okay.
And I have
Councilor
a
Laniski.
I have a comprehensive list of like the materials and the costing and the source and MSDS and all that good stuff.
Really?
Okay, Counselor Burns.
Yeah, thank you. I just looking, it's on council share. It's broken down. It's all broken in that on the council share on the drive there. Exactly where it's, the applications actually. So I don't know if that's approximate the money or money, but it's all out there.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now, Counselor. There is a lot of information in there.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of information.
Great. I'm just trying to get to it quick. I think I found the Elizabeth Parker Plaque, Korean War, Spanish-American War, King Philip's War, Vietnam War. Okay, and then it gives descriptions on.
It kind of it doesn't go in sequence, but it's Pine Hill, and then it goes some like, Mundell up here, and so it's broken up right in there. It's quite, like you said, it's quite a few pages.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Adams, do you have any questions on item number 5?
No, I just wanted to, Gene, quick question for Gene. Gene, you do this for free, don't you? Or is there a stipend for you?
I'm a volunteer. Julie added me as a Veterans Grave Officer. I get a stipend for Veterans Grave Officer. But that's.
And I know you spend every day in one of the cemeteries, and the time and what you've learned from doing what you do is very valuable to the community here, because if we were to pay somebody to do what you do, it'd be crazy. This is a specialty. You can't just go to a stone and fix it. You can't go to a stone and clean it, especially these old ones, without sometimes ruining them if you don't know what you're doing. So I know we as a community certainly appreciate what you've done to resurrect a lot of these stones and put them back together, because a lot of the cemeteries, they have an account that is for taking care of the grounds, but the account unfortunately doesn't cover stones that need to be fixed. That's not part of the monies that the cemeteries have. So we certainly appreciate everything you have done and do every single day, because I see you at a cemetery every day, Gene. So the community is very lucky to have you doing what you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing, and everything that you do looks wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks, JR. I appreciate that. And of course, I appreciate, all the support that you've done and your family has done. And I think it's kind of a remarkable story that we have a gentleman like JR amongst us who firmly believes and supports the community in almost every aspect. So I speak from that on many different directions, whether it be from the American Legion or whether it be from working in the cemeteries. But give you an idea of what JR was talking about, like a marble tablet with base or a slot with base. For example, like the work that I did up at Mundale New Cemetery over the course of about 3 days, that would have been about $5,000. And I did that roughly, my cost for like materials was probably about $30.
Yeah, that's crazy. Thank you, Gene.
Counselor Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, Chief, I spent a lot of years with you. We worked together for a lot of years, and I personally want to thank you for all you do and your volunteers. You were, when we worked together, you did a lot of volunteering anyways, so you just continue with it. But again, thanks a lot. And, I appreciate it. And people up here in Mundo appreciate it also.
Yeah, it's, I had a couple, a nice young couple that worked with me a week from Saturday on the 8th of May. And both of them were engineers, and then learned the following day that her father passed away at a young 62 years old. They did a remarkable job. And of course, they fixed on the lower end, raised David Drake, and then there was one standing beside it. And so it motivated me to go up there and repair the last one there. So it's Mundale New looks pretty good. And of course, since last fall to present, we repaired 9 monuments up there.
Mm-hmm.
Still a lot of work to be done up there, but you can't eat the elephant in one bite.
Looking good, Dean. Looking good.
Counselor Burns doesn't live too far from there, so anytime you need a hand, Gene, he's right down the road.
Yeah, and then I believe Councilor Adams lived a little bit closer than I do.
Well,
Yeah, I'll be retiring. I'll be retiring next year, Dean, and I'll be there with you.
All right.
You'll drag me out. I know you will.
Don't even have to knock, just go in and grab them.
That's right. My wife will be happy.
Now, you said, Gene, that, or Jay, there is a list somewhere. I mean, I see it kind of spread out, but do we have a list of each monument or or,
It's in the
And-
packet if you can find it.
yeah, that's what I'm looking through and I'm having a hard time.
There's kind of a table that highlights the, um, it's in there.
All right, I'll look through more closely, Jay, and if I have any troubles, I'll,
And of course, it's all text searchable. So if you do a control F and do a search, you'll find anything that you're looking for.
Mr. Chairman, it's like sideways on the shared drive.
yeah, I see a couple of them like that.
Put it up like this.
Anyway, I'll look through it. I won't keep up the meeting for this. Are there any other questions?
Uh,
All
I just
right,
want to specify that this is not maintenance work. We can't fund maintenance with CPA. This exceeds that. This is restoration and rehabilitation work.
Yeah. That's actually conservation work, conservator work.
thank you for that point.
Got a
Okay,
motion,
any other
Mr. Chair?
questions?
Are
What's that?
you looking for a motion?
Yeah, if you guys are ready.
I am, if everybody else is. A motion to appropriate 76,128.24 from the CPA undesignated balance account and 12,871.76 from the community preservation undesignated account.
Second,
Motion made and seconded for a positive recommendation. Roll call, Adams,
Yes.
Burns,
yes.
Oniski, yes. Item passes 3-0. Next item, item 6, is submitting appropriation in the amount of $39,500 from the Community Preservation Undesignated FY 21 account 24101-770-58 quad 0 to CPA Pine Hill Cemetery Monuments Historic Account 24101-770-580-200-5208. Okay, sounds like,
Make a motion as read to approve.
all right, well, let me just, can I ask a question?
Sure,
Counselor?
you're the chairman.
I know. Jay, this is because, let's see, Pine Hill Cemetery. So this is separate because it's a private cemetery? Am I
Right.
Understanding?
So,
Okay.
so we would have a private grant agreement with them. And this doesn't need to go through the city procurement process. So it's a little different that way. That's why it's separated out.
Okay. And this is the 39,500 is for multiple monuments or gravestones?
I believe so, Gene. I think there's one that's the bulk of it.
Okay, I'm gonna look more closely on this tonight. And just to make sure we have a clear idea of what the money is exactly, how it's separated out. All right, are there any questions or discussion from the other counselors? Counselor Burns?
Just looking at the on the shared drive, it actually, it designates the amount of money on there. So
Tell me what page.
it's on page, it looks like it's page 83. It's 35,000. So there must be another offshoot of that also.
I think some of the estimates folded in, mixed these all together. So
I think together, and there's
Yeah, I know it's all in here, but I'll look, Mike, and if you can look tonight too for a consolidated list,
yeah, we can do that.
just so we could have it for the council meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, Anything else, Counselor Burns?
I'd like to thank Kate for putting it out there. Council shared tonight, so that's good. We'll be able to take care of it. No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Adams?
I got nothing. I mean, I know, and I make the same comment I just made. I'm in Pine Hill Cemetery a lot, and it's really amazing to see a stone that is falling apart to be brought back to life, I guess, which is kind of strange at a cemetery saying that, but it's amazing to see what Gene can do and his volunteers. It really is. I mean, that stone looks like it was put in a week ago, something that was put in 200 years ago. That really was, you don't even recognize in the cemetery before because it's got so much stuff growing on it and it's cracked and half of it's on the ground. It's unbelievable what he does. I'm very impressed with, how he knows to put this back together. It's in my opinion, that's what community preservation is keeping that community preserved as it was all those years ago.
Yeah, and with the, all the people have served in the military, hundreds of years ago, it's very appropriate, and
Yeah.
Gene's really an unsung hero with that too.
Yeah, he is.
All right, is there any motions perhaps?
Councilor Burns, I think had it before.
Yeah, motion is approve the motion as read.
You don't want to read it? I'll second that.
He already read it.
I
Motion
seconded it. You're
made.
fine.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded. Roll call. Adams,
Yes.
Burns.
Yeah.
Oniski is a yes. Item passes 3-0.
Thanks, Jay.
Jay's sticking around, I think, for this next
We'll
one
thank him
too.
again for the next one.
I'll leave if I can.
Looks like Carrie left.
7, appropriation of $50,000 from community preservation open space account to CPA Yellowstone Farm APR account, and an appropriation of $19,000 from the community open space account reserve balance account number 2410340100 to CPA Yellowstone House Farm APR account 2410177-58010052124. And again, here, this is going to come out on the floor as two separate appropriations. So we could vote on them as one here, but when they get on the floor tomorrow, I'll note that we're gonna separate them. Jay, can you give us some background, please?
Sure. Again, they're funded from two separate sources to spend down the current fiscal year fund before we get into our balance money. So they are dependent on each other. So I think, it really should be considered as one kind of motion. But this is a city contribution to the state APR program. So the state is footing the majority, I think 80% of the payment for this. They ask municipalities to contribute, I think it's 20%. This is to preserve 14 acres, I believe, of land as farmland in perpetuity. So protected from development and preserving it, that it will continue to be farmed. We had a very thorough presentation at the CPC. The state APR agent was there. This ranked very high on the assessment statewide. So they're very eager to pursue this. And obviously it's an open space component of the CPA, so clearly eligible for funding in that context. And I think maybe Connie may have some details, but that's a summary.
Thanks,
And,
Jay. So we're looking at,
we also have Barbara Hobson, who is the state representative, in attendance, and she's available to answer any questions as well.
Good evening.
Good evening, Barbara. Thanks for coming. We're looking at then an ask of a total of $69,000 from the city. Is that correct?
Yes,
Through the
some of it
account?
is for the value of the land, and then there are some ancillary costs for survey, recording, things like that.
$59,000, okay, and then the $19,000. Okay, MDR requested match is 59, it looks like here. And that's the 20%?
That's correct. Yep, this is Barbara. That's correct.
Okay. And then there's 6,000, 2,000, so what's that? $10,000 for a survey, legal expenses, closing costs, and permits and signage.
All right, so those are, I think, just budget items. They will be reimbursed for actual costs, so it may come in less.
Okay. Connie, can you give us a rundown of this?
Sure. So what we're trying to do is ensure that the land will always be available for agricultural use only. This particular area, the 14 acres is right on Route Road. It's very attractive for development, and we want to make sure that it doesn't get developed. And right now we're growing organic vegetables on this area. We feed about 200 different families in the local area on an annual basis. But what's also available for, we have walking trails and programs and school groups and all sorts of stuff. We're even hosting a wedding this summer. So it's, I like to think of it as a community resource as well as an agricultural enterprise.
Okay, there's 14 acres you said out of, is that the entire amount of what you farm?
No, oh, it's not, it's the entire amount that we farm. We have it, we have additional acreage that's wetlands, some forest, and then there's the farmstead, which is the house and barns, and they're not included.
So the house is not in this.
No.
And the program from the state, I mean, how does this work with taxes and is
We
it
would
in
still be paying, we would
perpetuity?
still be paying the same tax that we're paying now. We're taxed as a 61A. We would continue to be taxed as a 61A. We still own the property. What we've done is we've sold the development rights.
So these 14 acres are a 61A now?
Sure.
So I guess, I don't know, what's this additional funding for?
Because basically, so Barbara, I'll let you answer. You're
Okay, I
probably-
can speak to that. Yeah. 61A, as you well know, is sort of a temporary lien on the property to give farmers or folks that have forested land, or in some communities, recreational land, a tax break, basically to pay the taxes on that use rather than potential development on the property. So as Connie said, the property is currently under Chapter 61A, but the difference between Chapter 61A is it's temporary, and an individual can withdraw from Chapter 61A at any point to sell for a change of use, to sell for development, or another use from, in this case, farming. So the APR program basically is paying farmers to put a restriction on their property that runs in perpetuity so that it will never be developed. And so that's kind of the big difference. And so we do an appraisal on the property and come up with the value of the restriction. And in this case, the overall value of the restriction is $295,000. So the Commonwealth will be paying 236,000 of that, and the 20% local contribution is the 59,000. So that's kind of how the numbers work out. But I think the important thing to note is that it's permanently restricted, and it will always go forward as a farm. And also for future generations, one of the goals of the APR program is to keep restricted land affordable for future generations. So it can be sold at agricultural value, but it always must be farmed.
Okay, so this may end up going to finance after. I'm probably going to motion for that, but while we're here, the 295K is what it's valued at now, and that is as if it was going to be developed?
No, actually, that's the value of the restriction. So I can give you just a quick sort of thumbnail sketch of how we arrived at that value. So we hire the state contracts with appraisers to do an appraisal on the property to establish three values. The first value is the fair market value, and that's the value if you put the land on the market today for the highest and best use, which would be for residential development. It's based on comparable sales and all that sort of stuff. So that's your first value. The second value is the fair market agricultural value, and that's based on comparable sales of similar restricted farmland in the immediate area. So if you subtract the fair market ag value from the fair market value, it gives you the value of the restriction, because the fair market ag value is equity that the landowner maintains when they decide to sell it to a farmer in the future.
Okay, so the fair market value is how much?
The fair market value is, you can hang on just a sec.
Yep.
I have it right here someplace. So the fair market value, and I believe, Connie, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we're basing this on 14.7 acres. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So the fair market value is 380,000. The fair market agricultural value is 85,000. So the difference in the APR value results in the APR value of 295,000.
Okay,
So Bill, one of the big benefits of this is that going forward, if there's a young farmer out there who wants to buy agricultural land, rather than having to compete with developers, for the best price, they will be able to buy it at the agricultural value, even in the future. So one of the things that we are doing is we are sacrificing the opportunity to be able to sell this land in the future for that highest value. And we are binding our heirs to it as well, because it's a restriction in perpetuity. Not only
Okay.
that, any farmer who buys it in the future will also be restricted.
Correct.
okay. Is there a restricted sale price? I mean, if this sells as an agricultural, right? Because that's the only thing you could sell it as.
Right.
What would the price of that property be?
So the base price that is established is the price at the time of appraisal. So the 85,000 would be the base price going forward to a farmer. But we have built in factors to allow that to appreciate over time, because obviously real estate values do appreciate. And so we would look at, there are a couple ways to figure out what the potential future sale price could be. One would be to have an appraisal done on the property. The other would be to apply the consumer price index, which isn't the best way, but it gives you some inflationary value as you go forward over 10 years or whatever period of time. But we've also built in some caveats in that allow someone to go over, say, for example, the CPI, if they can provide a business plan, a farm business plan, and a bunch of documentation. So the ultimate goal of the program is to make sure that it does go to a farmer at an affordable price, but that affordable price is kind of driven by market as well. So it's what it's worth to a bona fide farmer to go forward with that property. If that
Okay, so
answers your question. Yeah.
I think so. So it goes at market value of
Yes.
farmland.
Yep. But based
And-
on that base price, and then it will appreciate over time.
All right, so in order for this to sell in the future, it
Mhm.
would need to get your blessing.
Yes, the APR restriction contains an option to purchase at agricultural value, which is kind of similar to the right of first refusal that you will see under Chapter 61A. But the difference is that Chapter 61A basically says that you have to meet a bona fide offer, and that doesn't necessarily get at what the agricultural value is of the property. So the option to purchase at agricultural value sort of says, okay, so for example, if I'm the farmer next door to Connie and I want to expand my operation, and for me, I'm highly motivated because it's next door, you know, the proximity, I can run my tractor or whatever right there. I may be a little bit more motivated than somebody from 10 miles away. So that's sort of factored into the business planning of it. So the option to purchase at ag value is a little bit more robust, I would say, than a right of first refusal. But it's similar in its intent that they would have to offer, or basically, if Connie were to sell, you know, in the future, she would have to basically provide the Commonwealth with a copy of a purchase and sale agreement and all of the supporting documentation. And then the Commonwealth could choose to waive that option, which means that the sale could go forward, or we could exercise at that point, which is very rarely done, and sort of step in and put out a request for other farmers. Very rarely done, though.
Okay, so it's sort of a right of first refusal that you have. So it could be sold at, let me just say $150,000. Let's say somebody wants to buy it for $150,000. So
With the proper documentation sort of supporting that value, yes.
But they have been known to say no.
We have exercised on a few occasions, yes, we have. And basically the reason for that is for a non-farmer buyer. And I think, you know, in this case, because Connie has such a successful organic CSA operation there, that there would be an incredible amount of people interested in continuing that. And that's one of the reasons too that Connie's application scored the highest of any of the applications that we've had this past fiscal year, because of the potential or the viability of the farm going forward.
all right, and does this have access to a road?
It has road
It's on a
frontage,
road.
yes. That's
I
actually
know,
what
but-
the appraisal is based on.
Could be covered
Yes.
by something else.
Yep.
Okay, any of the counselors have any questions? Counselor Adams?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So, quick question here. Does this trump the 61A that the city would have? Would the city still have right of first refusal if this remains in 61A as they would normally have if it was to be sold? Or does this restriction oversee that 61A piece?
Actually, that's an excellent question. Thank you. It's a little bit of a quirky sort of thing, because one of the I guess benefits to a community having, you know, a property under 61A is if the landowner decides to sell for another use out of agriculture, then you would have the right to step in and meet that bona fide offer. But by putting a permanent restriction on the property that basically requires that it stay in agricultural use, it will never have a change of use. So the option, there would never, you couldn't exercise a right of first refusal under 61A. And
Okay, so the city would never have that option.
that's right. because it's restricted for agricultural use.
Okay, okay. No, I understand. No, I certainly understand what, I mean, we've done a lot of these. I mean, a lot of them, I think, well, I shouldn't say a lot of them. This one's a little different because a lot of times, like when Winding River was around, it was kind of the same thing, but this is more of a state thing. Winding River was a separate entity, I think, but it was the same thing was happening, I believe.
Yeah, we have actually worked on a few of the previous APRs in town with Winding River, and oftentimes the local contribution may have come from Winding River or resulting in a bargain sale on behalf of the landowner.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Winding River has been very, very active. Well,
Right.
it was in the
Seen them in
past.
a while. We haven't, you know, they used to be pretty active. I haven't seen Winding River around in a while, but so Connie, you know, and I think you said it earlier. I haven't been against, but here's what I don't like to see, and it sounds like you're not doing this. What I don't like to see is somebody doing this and posting all their property, because I feel it is taxpayer, or some of it's taxpayers' money, some of it's state money, and I think by giving the money from the city and the state, the community should be able to use it. And I think you said there's walking trails and whatnot on your property that they can use.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like that and I appreciate that because a lot of people take the money and post it.
No, we are actually really into providing the farm as an experience. You know, and it's not quite agritourism, but you know, there's nothing better than having a family with small children come in and discover, you know, where their food comes from. And the adjacent acreage, that's all the wetlands and things like that. There's another 55 acres, actually it's more like 65 acres. That's all wetlands in the back. And we're looking to get that preserved somehow as well. So that hopefully the whole property at one point will be preserved, but you have to do it in chunks because it's different agencies that do different things. MDR, which is who Barbara's with, they do purely agricultural land. They don't do the preservation of things like wetlands and rivers and stuff.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you doing what you're doing because again,
Well,
there's
you
been
know,
a
we're
lot of these-
losing farms at a horrific rate in Massachusetts right now. It's just awful.
Well, farmland is worth a lot of money if it has frontage.
Yeah, but you know, got to have some place to grow our food.
You know, I know, I appreciate that. No, I understand what you're doing, and no, I think it's a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Burns, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just looking here, and again, thank you, Connie. I know every time I talk to you, how excited you get about the property, and hearing your voice again with the property, thank you. No, I was just looking at the actually the sheet there, the agriculture restriction sheet, and so just to make it clear, 14.7, that's the only one that's going to be.
The actual farmland, the place where we're actually growing the crops.
Okay, now basically the other acreage, it's not usable, or I mean, it's not.
It's wetlands.
It's wetlands, okay. It seems as though it says a lot of it's wetland. Past your 22 acres, and I didn't realize you had that much property up there.
Yeah,
But-
but it backs up onto a farm in Southampton,
Southampton.
and there's no road back there.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. You can answer a lot of questions. Just I was going to ask, but you answered them previously, so. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I've just got a couple more questions really relating to the $10,000 for the survey, legal expenses, closing costs and permits and signage. What is the signage?
Oh, that's where
Sure.
we're going to actually post the land as being, you know, supported by the city of Westfield Community Preservation Commission.
Okay,
So people know where their tax dollars are going.
okay. I don't know what your guys' thoughts with the, you know, L&O committee's thoughts are on the survey legal expenses and that $10,000.
If I can just clarify something about the survey. We do have a survey done of the property for obvious reasons. You know, we need to know the boundaries and the encroachments, and it does need to be recorded, et cetera, et cetera. And it's an attachment to the actual restriction at the Registry of Deeds. But the Commonwealth requires that the landowner pay 50% of the cost of the survey. And we are not at that point right now that we've actually contracted out for a survey. But I just wanted to point that out, that the landowner is required to pay 50% of that, and the state will pay 50% of the cost of the survey.
And I'll
the
just add, sorry, Connie, I'll just add that, you know, we see these legal expenses, survey expenses are usually included with a lot of these CPA projects, architectural and expenses, things like that. The idea is it's all part of the project. It's all necessary to make the project go forward.
Okay, so is it, we got 50% for the surveys. How about the rest of the items? The legal expenses?
So that would be closing costs and all that kind of stuff.
So the city would pay 100% of the survey, legal expenses and closing costs?
50% of our 50% of the survey costs. And then and then that if we're asking for you to pay for the legal and other costs. Yep.
So it's 100, I just wanted to be sure. It's 50% for the survey. Landowner pays 50%, city pays 50% according to this. And then, but the legal expenses for 2,500, closing costs and permits for 300, and signage for 1,200 is all city funded. That's correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the idea, at least the CPC's understanding, was that we were paying for any expenses that the landowner would incur associated with this.
Okay, except for the survey where the landowner pays. Is the landowner paying half or
Well,
Mass paying?
I think the city was willing to pay the landowner's half or reimburse the landowner for her 50%.
Yeah, actually, what we do is the Commonwealth pays for the 100% of the survey to get it done and stuff, and then we deduct 50% of that of the closing check, basically.
Okay. So landowner 0% for the survey at this point. It's the city and the state.
Yes, again, that was the CPC's understanding, is they would foot the bill for all associated costs.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other things you'd like to bring out, Connie or Barbara?
The only thing I might mention is that all the costs that were quoted on the expenses are estimates. It could very well come into much less money. Just wanted to cover ourselves. I don't see the surveys being particularly expensive because it's fairly easy survey. It's not like it's going to be in the back meadows where they're looking for a rock that doesn't exist anymore as a boundary.
And unspent monies would go back to the CPA fund.
Oh, quick-
Yeah, I guess
question.
the only thing that I'd like to add is that, you know, us at MDR are just really excited to move forward with this project. It's a wonderful project, and it basically it's a good symbol of what the APR program is supposed to do. So thank you, Connie, and thank you to all you folks in Westfield. We're really excited about this one.
Bill, I just said, Connie, how much frontage do you have there? I don't have there might be a map somewhere, but I'm not looking at it. Any idea?
God, I'm just terrible on numbers. It's at least 200. It's a, what, well, how big's a football field? It's probably a football field and a half. So it's the 150 feet, 100, 200 feet.
Yeah. And Jay, what's the, if someone were to build a house up there, what do you need? 150, 200?
150, and it seems like it's certainly could get out at least 2 houses, maybe 3, but
They
I'm just- I'm ac-
estimated that it was 6 building lots.
okay.
I'm
Six
actually,
building lots.
I'm actually pulling up the appraisal right now, just to give you that number.
If there's 6 building lots at 100,000 apiece, that'd be 600,000. That could be done there. At the
Yes.
city, at the city's cost of what, 69,000 to not have that happen. That seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Okay, I think we went through most of the financial items in here pretty thoroughly, so I don't think this really does need to go to finance. Is there any other questions to the counselors? Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the 50,000 from this community preservation open space and the 19,000 from community preservation open space reserve balance for the Yellowstone Farm.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Roll call. Adams,
Yes.
Burns,
yes, and thank you, Connie.
Oniski is a yes. Item passes 3-0.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you,
this will be
thank you.
brought out to full council tomorrow for the, I won't say real vote but the vote that counts more
I'll
than
be
this.
there. I'll be there. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you, you too. Pete, we can go beyond 6:30 with this, right?
Yeah, I've already notified school committee that they're going to be on as soon as you're done.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Board of Appropriation in the amount of $20,000 from Reserve for Unforeseen 19550-570900 to Engineering Construction Account Number 1411 Quad 0-589200 for taking 0 Shaker Road and an order of taking of real estate by the right of eminent domain for 0 Shaker Road. Jeremy, would you like to take this one?
Sure. Yep. This is actually another CPA project that we get money for this fiscal year. It's a bike trail connector from Country Club down to the bike trail that crosses Shaker Road. So in order to build it, we needed to grade onto the adjacent property, which was an old Banish property. And while going through it with the law department, we realized it's a property that was in the rear on taxes, pretty significant. As we looked at the property a little closer, we do have ideas for expanding the sewers to that neighborhood. This is kind of a low area. The whole property sits in the low area of the neighborhood. So it also has use for potentially a future sewer pump station. So we got a couple of uses for the property. It's about 1.5 acres. The appraisal came back at 20,000 just because it's pretty severe slopes. It's wet in the area, so probably the reason why it hasn't been built upon. And again, there's some back tax as well, and in excess of the 20,000 that the appraisal came in. So really, what we do, it's some accounting where we essentially pay ourselves the 20,000, and then it gets paid back. It's all city to city money at this point.
Okay, so the $20,000 will get paid from Reserve for Unforeseen account, and it will go back to the city for back taxes, essentially.
Correct.
So out of one pocket into the other.
Yep.
And the main uses, you said, what, we had sewer expansion. What was the first use you said?
So the first use we were looking at it for was a bike trail connector. So
Okay.
that whole neighborhood of Country Club, right now they need to come out into Shaker Road on their bikes to get to the bike trail, which is a pretty dangerous section of Shaker Road. So we're actually ready to build that as soon as we acquire the property. We're set to build that this summer. So that was the first use we looked at for the property.
We are, Mr. Chairman, we already appropriated the money for that bike.
Yeah.
Ramp. That's already been appropriated.
So we appropriated for the bike ramp, but not the property?
Well, this is the follow-up. And I
Correct.
take it, Jeremy, this is a friendly taking?
Well, again, it's MJ Banish was listed as the owner. And I think there's upwards of 13 heirs that were many years ago. So that's probably gone. It hasn't gone through probate. I think the concern is I think somebody tried to realize, get through probate to see who owns it. It's just with so many heirs, it goes nowhere, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, because I always like friendly takings. I don't like the other ones.
Well, it's eminent domain, so it's not a friendly taking.
Well, it can be. It says the city owns it. It's a friendly taking.
Yeah, but if it's eminent domain,
certainly-
we're taking the piece. If it was a friendly
Yeah.
taking, we'd have a deal with them. This isn't a deal, really. It's eminent. We're taking the property.
Right. But is it going to be held up through
It should.
probate?
If somebody wants to come forward with the $100,000 they owe in taxes, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So it's,
It was appraised at 20,000 and they owe, I think, 100,000 plus on it.
So in a way, we're getting them out of paying $100,000.
Correct.
yeah, but that property is a lot more to us than 100. That's for sure. Sounds like.
Well, I guess the question would be, if we get 20, do they still owe the city 80? I'm not sure the answer to that.
I kind of tried to ask that question. Didn't get a solid answer, but I think we just absorb it as a loss. I don't think we're ever going to see it. The trouble is at this point is who do we go to get it? And that's a
Yeah,
long process to figure out who the owner is at this
Yeah.
point.
Especially if there's that many heirs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was just went into 13 heir. I think this was 20 plus years ago. So
Yeah,
things change in those 20 years as well.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
As you said, taxes have been owed on this for 20 years?
Yeah,
Jeremy?
probably at least with
Oh, yeah,
it being
at
built
least.
up that high.
Okay. And this exactly, I'm looking at the map here, where Shaker Road meets Country Club Drive. Where is this property?
So it's between, do you see the bike trail on there as well?
Yep.
So on the south side of Shaker Road between Country Club and the bike trail, it's about a 1.5 acre piece.
It's right on Shaker Road then.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Lot 1.451 acres?
Yep.
Okay. And that's going to be the exit for the bike trail then, or entrance?
Well, it's going to be a connector, I would say. So from Country Club and Farm and Old Farm Road and Rambling Drive, anybody that wants to come from those neighborhoods to get onto the bike trail, rather than going out into Shaker Road, now they'll take the side trail and get right onto the bike trail at that point.
Okay, thank you.
And that ramp was, I believe it was a $150,000 appropriation.
Correct.
Any questions, Counselor Adams?
No, I remember this happening. It was more of a safety concern. The main thing was the safety concern of keeping the people off of having to come out onto Shaker and then get onto the bike trail. This gave them a route to get to the bike trail without having to do that, which made it certainly a safety issue. There's been a safety issue with that crossing there for quite a while, I think.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't realize that the 150 paid for the construction and not for the property.
Yeah.
I don't think-
Almost see which do you do first, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think that was mentioned when we were voting on that.
No. Well, yeah.
Counselor
If I-
Burns, do you have any questions? I got
No.
you, Jay.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Jay.
I just want to say that we didn't want to use CPA funds for the acquisition of the property because that gets into other complications with restrictions and all that. So that's why
Oh,
we
the
kept
original-
kept the CPA funds for the actual construction project.
Okay, so the 150 came from CPA.
Right.
Okay, that's right. Okay. Any other comments or questions from anybody? All right, is there a motion?
A positive recommendation on appropriating the amount of 20,000 from reserve for unforeseen to the engineering construction account for taking of Zero Shaker Road in an order of taking of real estate by eminent domain.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call Adams,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Oniski is a yes. Item number 9, petition submitted by the planning board for a zoning amendment at sections 1-10, 1.3, 1-40.6, 4-10.3, 1-50.3, 9, 6-10.455 relative to strengthen codify wording regarding enforcement extend permit validity times. Now, I asked Attorney Reed to take a look at this before we discussed it. I mean, if you want, we could discuss it now, but I'd really like to get the opinion of the law department on this before we really vote on it.
Make a motion to hold in committee.
Second.
All right, Jay, any discussion on it, or do you want to wait for later?
This is just what came out of ZPD and going through you for an ordinance, so.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor and seconded to leave this item in committee. Roll call Adams,
Yes.
Burns, Burns,
Yes.
Oniski is a yes. Item passes 3-0. Last item is
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call Burns.
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Oniski, yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Caitlin,
Thanks.
for making the notes. I appreciate it.